Welcome to Taking the Con Out of Construction, the straight-talking show that's changing the industry, one episode at a time. Small mistakes can cost big money, and even more in time. But a small investment in listening to this episode could help you avoid disputes, delays, and costly pitfalls, while giving you the know-how to stop problems before they start. Let's turn complexity into clarity, and take the con out of construction.
I'm joined by Michelle Carr, a passionate voice for change in the industry, and someone who's on a mission to make construction clearer, fairer, and more accessible for everyone. In this first episode, we're getting to know Michelle herself, her story, her principles, and why she's relaunching the podcast, and what you can expect from the conversations ahead. Michelle, I'm so glad you could join me today. I can't wait to get stuck into this conversation.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So let's start right at the beginning. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and your journey into construction?
Okay, so my journey in construction started in my childhood. My dad had a construction company. It was called Minetron. It started back in the 80s at some point. It started a cleaning company, then they had a building division, and it grew from there. And I remember as a small child, he would do fire damage repair work for insurance companies. A lot of people don't like working for insurance companies now, but back then it was really difficult because we didn't have email and internet and things like that. And working for insurance companies, it's quite difficult to get paid. It takes a long time. So for new people coming into the industry, there's often an opening working for insurance companies because a lot of people don't like doing it. Anyway, fire damage was one of the things that he did quite a bit. And I remember one weekend, he was looking after me. I was 3 or 4 maybe, and he had to go and have a look at this job, and he had me, so there I was on this site. I don't remember anything else about it. I was very, very young, and I quickly learned that more damage is created from water putting the fire out than the fire itself. So that's where my experience started. And then my dad had an office in Sutton. I went to school in Sutton, and my school finished at 3:45. My brother was also in Sutton around the corner at a different school. He didn't finish till 5:30 most days. So after school, I would walk, I think I was 9 or something. I'd walk not even a mile, but it was a huge adventure for me from my school to the office. And I'd sit there and get bored, and I'd be chatting to people and doing bits and pieces. And then eventually I started working every day. I think I was about 11. They allowed me to start answering the phones. I started answering the phones for this main contracting company, and I worked with them. And then I started doing filing, working in accounts. And then in the school holidays, I'd be in there, and sometimes I'd be creating a newspaper with the facilities just because Mama worked there too. Started working in the QS department and helping the QS out because we had a female QS. Her name was Sally. She was lovely. And she taught me how to do takeoffs. So I'd be like, right, I'm bored. Give me something to do, get my brain working.
Yeah.
So I started doing takeoffs. And a takeoff, for anybody that doesn't know, basically measuring a drawing and then writing down what's on there, how many walls there are, the length of the wall, how many sockets there are, whatever it may be, from a drawing, basically calculating it so you can do a price for it or order materials or whatever it may be to do. So I started doing that. I really enjoyed it. So when you at school had to do the 2 weeks work experience, of course, naturally I would go and work for my dad. Now, my dad had an office in London at this point. He had split off from my mum. He was running the office in the city, and my uncle ran an office in Sutton. So I went up to the city, and that was quite incredible because I didn't do 2 weeks. I ended up doing the whole summer holidays. So I did the whole 3 months working, and I got paid £20 a day, and my ticket from Essex was like £17. At the time, he had a project which was a £47 million project, which was a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
And it was converting 4 Finsbury Square. You used to have United Bank Switzerland and Wahlbergs, and they combined to be UBS Wahlbergs. And they did this massive atrium, and there was a big dealer's floor, and there were flat screen TVs and Bluetooth headsets. It was amazing. And I got to work with companies like Arab Associates, TNT, Gleeds, like some of the biggest names in the world still today. I was working with those companies at 15.
Wow.
So that was an experience, and I was sort of following around. I went through all different departments. But being the boss's daughter was a challenge because some people knew me. At the time, I was probably like 20 or 30 of them were related to me. So they'd give me a load of crap. Yeah, my maiden name is Dawes, and so there was, 20 or 30 Daweses working all over the place. So whenever I went anyone with the surname Dawes, didn't matter where I go, they knew I was a relative. Also look a lot like my dad. So people would treat me differently sometimes. But also I got to see lots of different things. But there's some people that treated me badly because I was female. There's other people that treated me thinking that I was a princess and I got away with murder. I needed a death certificate to have a day off from working with my dad. And yeah, my CV at 18 was just out of this world because I'd worked with all these incredible people. And of course, I did not value that experience when I was 15. Not at all. I hated it. There's a lot I didn't appreciate as a child and as most teenagers do. And then when I was 18, I did design technology for A-level. I designed eco-friendly housing, underground housing and student accommodation, which was ironic because I've now built economic housing. I've worked with environmental projects and I've also built student accommodation. And it wasn't until, I don't know, halfway through one of these projects, I was like, oh my God, I designed these things like back when I was 16, 17. And I've tried to leave the construction industry a number of times in the last too many years to few decades, let's just put it that way. And then I always come back. I never actually managed to leave. I think about it potentially. I mean, I was contemplating being a senior school teacher and converting my degree into being a teaching degree. And I nearly did it, but didn't run back to construction. So the only issue I've had with construction has been bad clients. And I had a bit of a deep dive and I realised that the times that I wanted to leave the industry, it wasn't anything to do with the industry. It was to do with the clients, the way they were treating me. And there are a lot of people that are arseholes in this industry. And it's not right. And I didn't like it. And so that's why I started to make a change. And then at 18, I done my design technology A-level and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I was going to go into construction management, do a construction management degree. But then I wasn't sure if that was the right thing. And I thought, oh, do you know what? I'm just not going to make this decision. I'm going to do a bit of traveling. I'm going to do a bit of work. And I ended up moving to Tenerife and selling timeshare and doing other bits and pieces. And then I decided to come back in 2004, came back from living in Tenerife for 2 years. And my dad said, I need an accountant, I need a QS. What do you want to do? And I thought accountants are boring. They're not. In fact, I quite like the accountancy side of things, to be fair. It's just the accountants I'd met at the time were boring. So I picked to be a QS, but also I had a bit of experience with it. So I started my degree in September 2004 and in July 2004 found out I was 3 months pregnant with my daughter. So I had been told I couldn't have children, hence why I wanted to work on my career. And then suddenly find out I was 3 months, when I found out, was a bit of a shock. But I was like, that's it. I'm still doing it. I'm still doing my dreams. I mean, even when I told my dad's like, what are you saying? Because I was like, I've got my degree coming. I've got this, I've got that. And they're like, what are you asking me? I'm like, I'm not asking you. I'm just telling you I'm pregnant, but I'm not going to affect all my dreams. He's like, okay, fine. It was all a bit awkward, but I started my degree. Then I stupidly thought, because I struggled with my pregnancy, I was on crutches and goodness knows what else. It was tough. Yeah. I missed one of my exams because I was in labour at the time, which my university said was the best mitigating circumstances they'd ever had. And I only missed one exam. And then 4 weeks later in February, after having a C-section and a 10-pound baby after being in labour for 4 days, I was in a field doing a field survey in the rain. It was freezing. I was in agony because I still couldn't walk properly. I was just like, what am I doing? But I knew I could have stopped and then restarted the next year. But I knew full well that if I didn't carry on, I never would have completed my degree. So yeah, I was working full time at the same time. I think I took 4 months off work, but not university. I can't remember. It's a long time ago now. So I started my career on my degree with a baby in tow. Juggling, time management is always something I've had to do, and built a business, built my career with a little person in tow. So I'm resilient. While I was doing my degree, I was working for my dad's construction company and I was doing the procurement and I was junior surveyor role. So I was fully aware of that. Unfortunately, that went into liquidation for various reasons. So I witnessed that. I was there when the liquidators came in. That's a scary place to be. So I've seen what's gone wrong twice. I've seen what's gone wrong when things don't go right. And I have my opinion of it. And there's things that I saw as the little nothing person in the corner that nobody paid that much attention to. There's a lot of things that I saw that I know contributed to the demise of that business. And it never sat right with me, ever. And I think that's part of why I'm going down the route I've gone and I've ended up where I am, because that's never sat right with me, the way that people were treated and how it happened. It wasn't necessary. It could have been saved. I think the company went bust in 2008 or maybe 2007. And so I went for this interview and they had a job. They wanted to give me the job, but they were concerned about this 6-month project that they had to deliver. And they were worried about what was happening, and they were being honest, which is great. And back then, a lot more difficult to get rid of people. And I said, if that's the case, why didn't you just employ me on a freelance basis? Give me a 6-month contract. You get to see what I'm about because I'm new. I see whether I can walk the walk that I'm talking and see what I can produce, etc. And then we'll review it. And if you've got more work, then we'll have a conversation then. And if you don't, then I'll leave it at that. And they loved that idea. And I was the only person that proposed that idea of who they were interviewing. So I started working with them. And that's when my freelance career started. Then what happened with them, I loved working with them. They were a great company. I drove through Richmond Park and saw the deer every day. It was amazing. I spent more money than I earned, I think, on the high street at lunchtime. But it was an incredible experience. Really lovely people. And they were a great reference for me for a long, long time. But I didn't carry on. I think I was there for about 9 months or so. Can't remember exactly. It's a long time ago now. And the only reason that they didn't continue with me was because the person that I was replacing had left, went to the new company and asked to come back. And obviously he was in his I was in my 20s. He was in his 40s, knew the company, had worked for there for 20 years. So they gave him the job back. And I totally respected that. It wasn't anything to do with what I had done. He just was as a higher level and obviously knew them. And I needed more help because obviously I was brand new. And that was fine, but they were a reference for me for ages. And then I've worked for various companies. So my dad's company, I worked with the MOD doing disabled adaptions. That was an eye-opener. We worked on private houses, a lot for millionaires. I worked on schools, hotels, hospitals, all sorts of things, really. A lot of commercial offices. And then I started freelancing, and most of my freelancing career was in high-end resi. And then it was all high-end resi. But I've done refurbishments of buildings at 25 million for a house refurbishment. I've delivered properties with designers like Armani. I've worked with multi-millionaires. I've worked on some famous people's houses too, which are obviously NDAs and blah, 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 blah. So I can't mention who they are, but a few famous people's houses I've worked on. And I loved it. I did think that was limiting my career because of my experience. But actually, once I realised when I started working for and I've worked for professional practices, which is a PQS firm as well, and working with them, they were like, if your experience is high end, that's the hardest there is because the demands of the clients are the hardest. People change their mind, etc., etc. So I realised that once you've worked on that level, in all honesty, I've also delivered a lot of projects for the council. I've done a lot of MODs. I've done a lot of getting houses up to living standards. I've done a lot of HMOs. I've done every level that you could think of. And ultimately, the difference is the finishes. But it's client management. And that I'm really, really good at, because when you're dealing with somebody that is their own home, they're really passionate about it. Sometimes a lot of the clients, the family would be here and the husband would be in Hong Kong or the States or whatever they may be. And you're having conversations with them in different time zones. And then there's a whole battle in between what the wife wants and what the husband's prepared to pay for and all these other bits and pieces. And then as a freelancer, working for companies, developers, subcontractors, main contractors, working directly for end users and having to learn to manage that client. I've never been fearful of managing any client, whether that be my boss as a main contractor, whether that be the client of a main contractor, who it may be. I've always learned that you have to have honest conversations. And one of the PQS firms I work for, as a main contractor, are worrying about costs. So if they can't afford it, they shouldn't instruct it. And our job is to tell them what this change they want to make, what the financial impact is likely to be in time and money. And if they can't afford it and it doesn't suit with their time frame, then they don't instruct it. But it's our job to make sure that it's clear and they understand what they're doing and what they're asking for. And doing that and then learning how to have those uncomfortable conversations, because they are to start with, just became run of the mill. And that's how I've always been. And then things moved on and I've just gone from pillar to post. At one point, I thought I was jinxed because every project or every job I took ended up with a nightmare project. And I was just thinking, Jesus Christ, not another one that's in disaster. Because when you're having an interview, I didn't realise, because I was young and naive, I should be interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. I'm far too honest to my own good, to my own detriment at some point. But it's never served me badly. I've always got the job. Every job I've ever gone for, I've always been offered. And I sit there and I say my thing, but I'd be honest. And I never at any point thought that maybe they might be sugarcoating things. they were telling you the whole truth because I was telling you the truth. And I know people in interviews will tell they're selling themselves, right? So I never ever thought that maybe the interviewee might be selling the company. It didn't click. My brain just didn't work like that. And I'd end up with these projects and thinking, Jesus Christ, here we go again. It's not this, it's not that. And everything they'd said in the interview had lied, but I was in then. So I'm involved, got my hands dirty. I was there, I was committed. So I just followed it through. And these are some of the times that I would think, oh, that's it. I've had enough. I'm leaving construction, because it was a nightmare and firefighting constantly. Now looking back, all of these experience and all these nightmare projects, I've got so much experience when it comes to risk, especially. I have mitigated most risks before people even know they exist. That's what I'm really, really good at. But also, I noticed a lot of the time it wasn't actually the projects that were a problem. It was the companies running them. And then obviously I had to get involved with the company and get the company working right. And I always did much more. I'm very involved in businesses, because whether I be a quantity surveyor, whether I be a commercial manager or a commercial director, I can't do my job unless other people are doing their jobs. And if other people aren't doing their jobs properly, I'm one of those people that just gets it done. I'm a much better leader now. Back then I was just a doer. And if something needs to be done, you're not going to do it properly, I'm going to do it myself. That age-old thing that a lot of people fall into, especially women. And I just get it done. But then also I'd get people moving. Like, I'd go into a company and the surveyors never spoke to the accountants. Why not? I can't do my job unless the accountant. And also I need to get the accountants on side, because if I need them to switch some money around, or if I need them to pay someone urgently, or I need them to do me a favour because something else has gone wrong, they need to be on side. But also we have to work together, and they can't do their job unless they get the right information from me, and vice versa. And a lot of companies I'd go into and there'd be a massive divide between the two departments. And the first thing I would have to do is work at bringing them together. And because of that, I've now created such a good skill set that I can go into different companies and different departments, and I will bring them together. And I've done project management on client side, and therefore I know how to get the most out of people, make people accountable. So make sure that the architects are doing what they need to do, the structural engineers doing what they need to do, they're integrating their design, all these different people, the utilities have been ordered, this has been ordered, the main contractor knows, the client's right. Dealing with all of that, it all comes under the quantity surveyor is always the glue. That's kind of my experience, as short as I can make it. I could probably talk for hours and hours and hours. But what happened for me now is 5 years ago, I set up H2 Construction. The idea was to be a quantity surveying practice with a difference. And that's actually ended up being, I still do quantity surveying stuff through it, procurement, checking contracts, that kind of thing. But that's actually become a main contractors now. But I like to call it a contracting partner, because I think you need to, as a professional delivering a project, you need to make sure that your client understands what they need to be doing, and to protect them in order to protect yourself. So that's one thing. And then construction alchemy, I got called the construction alchemist because I have a tendency to take what I've got within a business or a project, take what I've got, shift it around a bit, add a bit of magic and a bit of sparkle, and create something incredible, whether that be an incredible project within the budget, or get the budget to fit the project, or get the company turning around, whatever it may be. So I was called the construction alchemist a few times, and I thought, do you know what? I'm going to call it construction alchemy, because I always thought, and I know it's much bigger than just me. And the reason there's two companies is because for my PI insurance, not that anyone's ever asked me for it, but I just sleep better at night having PI insurance. Got really, really excited about doing sort of more consultancy in our construction alchemy works under H2. So I separated the two companies, and it saved me $7,000 in PI insurance. And that's where construction alchemy started. Now, construction alchemy is about empowering people. It's about educating people with the experience that I've learned. It's about helping people with JCT contracts. It's about helping people understand the industry to a much higher level on the legal side of things, the commercial side of things, things that most construction business owners in the industry don't know or understand. The pitfalls where they get ripped off, where they got conned, but also at the same time, clients also get cons, because not all contractors are equal, not all nice, and they will sell their grandmother for a fiver. So that's what construction alchemy is about. When I first started, I didn't really understand who my client base would be, who would be interested in it, who I'd work with, because it was so new. Not that something that's ever done before. And while I started promoting it, I sort of didn't really know. I did the normal fail, I suppose, that most people when they're starting a business own, they just cast the net so wide because you don't want to miss a hook. Whereas actually, you're casting a net wide, you're not catching the right thing. What sometimes you're better off doing when you're fishing. Not that I'm a fisherman, but is actually selecting, you want a certain type of fish and selecting the bait and the way of catching that one particular fish. When you throw a massive net, you catch a whole load of things, including tires, boots, whatever. You don't necessarily catch what you want to catch. And I did the age-old thing, cast my net so wide, because I didn't really know who my client base would be. And now I'm in my second year, things have been much better. And I've evolved as a person, like hugely, in the last 18 months, 2 years, through probably 10 years, if I'm honest. And yeah, so taking the con out of construction came from, one, it's quirky. Everyone likes the title, taking the con out of construction, because it is full of con artists, but it's not just, people think it's contractors that are the con artists. It's not. Some of it's the client, some of it's the main contractor, a lot of it is the QSs. I'm not going to lie, a lot of it is QSs. And that's kind of where it came from.
That's a massively impressive journey. And it reminds me of those job adverts where they want you to have 10 years experience, but they want someone that's just out of university. You could probably actually do that, which is quite funny. So the title of this podcast is Taking the Con Out of Construction. What does that phrase mean to you personally?
Taking the con out of construction, originally what I was thinking about doing was a course for people doing house flips to start with, and it was going to be a training course, and it was going to be called Taking the Con Out of Construction, to protect people that wanted to do minor house developments or an extension or a new build or wanted to get into the construction industry. That was the purpose of it. Then when I looked into the training course, one, to actually build a training course properly into my level, which is everything I do has got to be an expert, and that's something I've had to work on. The caveats, the costs, the legal side of it, the potential exposure, the complication of how I would have had to spend a lot of money to get it done. And to be honest, I want to change the industry. I was trying to think of the most effective way of doing that. And I also believe in the butterfly effect. I've helped subcontractors that are working for me as I was the main contractor. And I help them because I know if I help them to do what they need to do better, it helps me in the long run, it helps the project. But I also know if I help them and guide them and support them through this project, they will then do the same thing with other projects and it will support them. But then it supports the people that work for them and the people that work for them. And then it's kids and then it's this. And the butterfly effect of you helping people, even if it's just like the other day, this woman was really stressed in the high street and she had a little girl with her and the girl was crying, trying to get a buggy out of this box. And I was sitting on a table of men and they were like, oh, she's really struggling there. And I looked, I hadn't noticed, got up, went and helped her. Basically, she'd flown into London airport, lost the pram. They'd just given her this new pram in a box. And I was like, right, here, you take the girl, you cuddle your daughter, let me sort the pram out. So I did. And that's just the type of person I am. And the butterfly effect of that small thing is she's now had a good day. She will then possibly help somebody else. She felt good and whatever. And you never know that one little act of kindness, how that's going to happen. And I do believe that we have a responsibility as individuals to make the world a better place. When COVID hit, my sons were 6 weeks old. So I've got identical twin boys. They were 6 weeks old, so we were in lockdown and I wasn't working, so I wasn't going to be risking those children. My husband worked the whole way through, so that was fun. And I had a 14-year-old at the time, also fun. I started training to do business coaching. I started doing health coaching, realised I was way too much of an empath, couldn't charge people for helping them with their health because I felt like I was taking advantage of their mishealth. So then I changed it to business coaching and I was really, really good at that. But then my client base were women and I didn't want to take money off them, especially if they were a single mum because I've been a single mum. And then I thought, what am I doing? And I went back to construction again. But what I realised in that stage was I wanted to help people. And then I realised that the best way for me to help people is using my 20 odd years of knowledge and my expertise. So I was like, how can I use this knowledge, all this experience, some of the nightmare projects that I've dealt with, nightmare clients, nightmare in construction. I mean, literally, I've lost count on the number of times my entire day, week or month went wrong at 7:45 just because a delivery didn't turn up, contractor didn't turn up, somebody didn't do what they were supposed to do, and it's just carnage. And what I was really good at is like, right, let's get it done. You won't be able to do this. You leave that to me. You get this done. You won't be able to get a crane tomorrow morning. Watch me. You do what you need to do. If we need to get the crane, I will get the crane. And the amount of times they'd walk in and they would be so goddamn impressed, and I'd be all smug sitting there because there's a crane, and they're like, all right, girl, yeah, you did it. And that kind of thing. I've had so much of those experiences within my life and my experience. And I just thought, how can I use all of this? And that was hard work. Being a boss's daughter, being a single mom, being a woman in construction has been really hard work, let alone all the nightmare projects. And I'm like, how can I use this experience? One, for me, as like, I suppose, a healing thing, but to get over that, to move forward, how can I get this to impact the planet, the world, whatever? And I'm like, taking the fun out of construction. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to educate people. And so I started thinking about doing this course, and then there were so many caveats and legal things and all this other stuff. And I was like, whoa, this seems painful and doesn't seem right. I don't want to put myself in a position, which to my own detriment I've done before, where I'm trying to say around other people, help them out. And then somebody, because there always is one, then tries to sue me and I lose everything just because I didn't say something in the correct manner. And obviously when you're paying for a course, it just changes the pressure on that. So I walked away from it. I started working with a guy called Gareth, who was brilliant for my confidence. I didn't want to have a picture of me. I also worked with a lovely woman called Wendy, who actually did my own professional photos to get my confidence, because I didn't want to be out there. I was more happy to hide behind the scenes. I've always been one to hide behind the scenes. I stand and do a talk, no problem. Promote another business, no problem. But when I was actually starting to promote my own business, oh my God, the fear and all these other things came up, which I've dealt with now. But he was good with my encouragement. He was like, right, we tried doing social media. And actually, I realized that when it comes to social media and promoting my business, it's not my company. I was hiding behind my brand. My brand should be me. And that took a while for me to sort of understand it should be me. It should be me. And my expertise. And ultimately, I know every job that I've ever sat in front of, I've been offered. Whether I've taken it or not is different. I've never not been given the job. Now, whether that's as a QS, as a commercial director, coming into fix, as a consultant, even as a main contractor, representing a main contractor, I've never not got the job because people buy me. And Gareth said to me, you need to be more visible. Nah, we need to do videos. Not a hope in hell. We need to do this. No, not happening. And then he said, what about doing a podcast? They don't have to see you. They just have to hear you. Let's try it. And I'm like, really? Didn't think anything of it. Anyway, he was very convincing. So we tried. And I didn't think anything of it. I didn't really put that much effort into it, I'll be honest, especially the first season. But then actually it became quite fun. I really quite enjoyed it. So then once my head was in the game and I was involved in it, then I wanted it to be better and better. But I never actually promoted it. Not really. But it was actually quite successful. And people started talking to me about my podcast. And I was like, wow. But then there was a few people sort of saying, I wanted more. And then I also realized through that who my key audience were, who my demographic were. But also I realized how I could help people. So the second season was better, but it still wasn't quite right. And I kind of felt that I had outgrown my own podcast because I've outgrown my self-limitations of who I used to be and what I wanted. And now I know exactly what I can do. But I've also got a lot of testimonies now. I've worked with Construction Alchemy's 18 months old. I've made some real change with some real businesses, but more importantly, with real people. And when people turn around and say, you've changed my life, or even better, when one of their relatives or friends have come up to me and said, thank you for what you did for so-and-so. We were worried. She was stressed. He was stressed. We thought he was having a nervous breakdown. This was happening and you came along and just fixed everything. I mean, that it's just unbelievable. And the feeling, and I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be and this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So I leveled up, and my sons are 5 now. They've just finished their first year of school. Twins is hard. Twins in lockdown is ridiculous. Parenting is difficult. Being female in the construction industry is difficult. But I've kind of got myself to like, right, I've done what I need to do. Everyone's kind of got over the COVID thing to some extent. And I'm like, right, now we need to do this properly. And in all honesty, marketing's not my thing. I understand a bit of it. I've got a H&D, business and marketing, but it's not my thing. Construction is my thing. So I've had to get over my own self, but actually doing the whole experience of something that I'm not used to doing, it's been great. And it's just another skill now that I can understand when I'm getting my clients to do things that they're not comfortable with because they're not used to doing them. I've got that empathy and that understanding of how they will feel. And now I can know how to support them with it. And it's just the fact that rather than just wanting to be honest and authentic, like, if people are going to judge me because I put out a podcast and it wasn't perfect, and actually I thought, you know what, this isn't aligned with me and my business anymore, so I'm going to redo it so it does. And if people are going to judge me for that, then they're just not my people. And so I thought about it long and hard, and there was some good content with it, but it just wasn't deep enough and it wasn't to the highest level because I wasn't giving it the energy. So the reason for doing the podcast is empowering people, educating, doing my thing to help people make money in business, keep hold of the money in business, change the whole wealth percentage as much as I can. People say, I don't know the percentages, but it's like 98 or 99% of the wealth is owned by 1 or 2% or something similar like that of the population. Trying to shift that, trying to make things fair in the industry, like trying to do what I can. And there's only so much I can do working with companies, but the more I can educate people that can then educate other people and educate other people and also make it accessible, affordable. Not everyone can afford me, I know that, but everyone can benefit from me and they deserve to have an opportunity. And yeah, people will learn things. And it's great when people come up to you, I listened to your podcast the other day, I didn't know this or I didn't know that. And that's been really inspiring. So the reason for doing the podcast in the first place was by default, because I was pushed into it by someone who I'll always be grateful for. And the reason for redoing it is now that I understand that it's a place what I need to do, and the best way to empower as many people as I can is doing the podcast. I want to do it properly.
If somebody listening to this now is brand new to construction, what's the very first piece of advice you'd give them?
So what I find fascinating, and if I'm honest, sometimes infuriating with the industry, is the amount of people that don't get the right professionals in. So if you own a home and suddenly you've got water pissing out everywhere or your boiler's broken, you will find a professional to come and fix it. When people start doing property development, extensions, work on the houses and take it to a different level to make money, they don't employ professionals to guide them. So they might employ an architect, but they don't know what they're looking for in an architect. They might employ a project manager, unlikely, or a site manager, it's unlikely, but sometimes they do. They will employ, obviously, a plumber, an electrician, and there's things they might do themselves, but they will employ trades. They never think about employing someone to protect them or their rights. Now, for me, and okay, you could say I'm slightly biased, but for me, QSs are worth their weight in gold, and we are the profession that people forget about. So most businesses will have an accountant. Any accountant that you have with a limited company should save you much, much more than they cost you, because they give you tax efficiencies, they help you with your cash flow, they give you that level of experience. When it comes to construction and construction projects, a decent QS is the same. We will save you much more than we will cost you, because ultimately we'll make sure that your things are doing right. You've got the right contract in place. You get the right companies in place. You know what you're talking about. You've got value engineering. So you're spending your money in their accurate places. You know what all your risks are. But also, if someone comes and does a variation, it's very common in the industry for contractors to, main contractors, subcontractors, all sorts of people to go in cheap to win a job, and then they'll make up their money in variations. It's really common. It happens all the time. I hate it. I've never done it, but it happens all the time. And also guiding with making changes. Like if you're doing your own property, one of the biggest things I will always say to people, because sometimes I do offer power hours, and if somebody wants some specific training, I can do training with them, and it can be like a whole day workshop. I do workshops, I do power hours, whatever. Literally, sometimes people just want an hour to throw a load of questions at me and I'll give them some advice. But I always say to them, for people doing developments on their own, don't ever buy a house or do a house that you would like to live in, because what you'll end up doing is wasting a shitload of money because you're going to do it to your taste. You have to do it to aim at your market. So whoever you're looking to sell or rent the property out to, that's whose eyes you need to look through. So if you love the colour green, don't put green all over the house, because you're only going to encourage people that like the colour green. I loved pink. I wouldn't buy a pink car or even a purple car, because when you're looking to sell that car at some point, you just narrow your market. Don't spend loads of money on particular finishes or things that people are likely to change. There's no point in painting every colour, every wall a different colour, because you're just going to limit the sale opportunity. But if you're looking to sell it, do it neutral, because someone wants to be able to put their mark on it or whatever else it may be, unless it's for you. If you're looking to flip it or to make money out of it, do not do what you want to do. You have to have in your mind, that's where people make mistakes all the time. So that's one of the things. But the ultimate thing for people getting involved in this industry is making sure they've got the right experts. Now, whether or not that's doing a training course of some sort, whether that's employing a QS for your first project, yeah, it will cost you money and it will affect your bottom line, but ultimately it will save you. And if you use those experts properly, you will learn so much that you can then repeat. getting the right advice, doing due diligence, but also asking questions. And it's your responsibility to find out the answers and make sure that what somebody's telling you is correct, because otherwise you're opening yourself up to be ripped off. Don't just phone someone up on one person and take their advice as gospel, because they might be acting in their own interests. They might not be a decent contractor or a decent person. Go out to tender. There's so many different things, but speaking to experts is definitely the most important advice, and doing your research and your due diligence. Everyone thinks construction's easy. It's not. It really isn't. And a lot of people think, well, if they can do it, I can do it. But actually, something is always simple when you know how. They're always getting the right advice is the most important thing.
Absolutely. Looking ahead, what topics are you most looking forward to covering in our upcoming episodes?
So taking the con out of construction is sort of one aspect of it, but actually I want to improve the industry. And the best way to improve the industry is to call out what's wrong. Let's stop brushing things under the carpet. I've been networking recently, and networking on behalf of my own business as a consultant is quite different to networking on behalf of another company. But actually, it's been really interesting. So I've met a lot of people in different industries. So I now help a number of funding companies to protect their interests or their clients' interests on site. And obviously, they're not from the construction industry. I also speak to a lot of people that are in marketing or retail or whatever, something totally different from construction. They're looking to buy property as an investment, or they're looking to do their own house, whatever it may be. Having conversations with them and realizing how different our industry is from any other industry is like been mind-blowing. And it's been blowing their minds how things go on in construction. And they're just like, really? And I'm like, yeah, it's just common practice. But how many of us, myself included, who have this ethos of it's okay to not get paid on time, it's okay to get your invoices slashed. There's a lot wrong in the industry and we just don't talk about it. And when I started talking about it, people get quite empowered and actually it's like, hold on a second, let's start our revolution. I mean, I'm not going to be marching on the Houses of Parliament anytime soon unless I need to. I mean, who knows? The best way of changing things is like, hey, giving it a good shake up. This is what's wrong. Let's stop brushing it under the carpet. Let's stop jumping through hoops for clients that don't pay us. Let's change our mindset. Let's empower. Let's like, do you know what? We're doing a good job. I'm doing a good job. Like, I'm not the type of person you don't pay, and I've never been like that. And that's because it doesn't make sense to me. I do see the world very differently to everybody else. I have a number of isms, should we say, and my brain is very different for other people, and I understand how powerful that is. But I'm now understanding even more so how powerful it is, because I just see things that seem so logical. For example, I love what I do. How many people are in jobs that aren't aligned with them and they don't enjoy doing? I remember a boyfriend saying to me once, not everybody loves going to work, you know. Well, then more for them. Why would you not spend 8, 9, 10 hours a day, sometimes 16, well, let's say between 30 and 50 hours a week, sometimes 60, something you don't like doing? It makes no sense to me. None. Why would you jump through hoops for a client that doesn't pay you? Makes no sense to me. I've done it. I have done it, not gonna lie. So first of all, I want to sort of highlight what is actually wrong in the industry and open people's eyes to things that are going on that shouldn't be. But ultimately, changing the mindset and thinking, hold on, yeah, you're right. We just do it because of a habit. No, we're not doing that. So I understand. So that's one of the things. And then some sort of tips on how to change those things. Then I want to talk about the Construction Act. It's actually called the Housing and Regeneration Act of 1996. I always want to say 1996. And the basis around that, the idea of the act was to protect subcontractors. And most subcontractors don't understand it. It's where the JCT contract from. Most subcontractors don't understand that. And actually, there's a whole mass of people that don't understand about this act that was put in place in 1996 to protect them, and they're still getting ripped off. So I want to go into that and explain what that is and how that protects people and how to use it. And then we're going to go into contracts, because people think I'm a contract specialist because I talk about them all the time. Anyone that comes to me with a problem, what's the contract? So they think that's what I do. Some of my clients go, yeah, she's a contract specialist. I'm not. I just understand one. I also understand that you don't know how important a contract is until things go wrong and you try to rely on it. And now I can say, touch wood, not a single contract I've written has ended up in dispute. So yes, I'm strong on contracts because I've had to be. I understand where they go wrong. So
Yeah.
I know how to protect someone. And when you understand and have a decent contract, you just don't get into dispute. So that will be the next one, because they are the key things that will empower everybody, whether you've been in the industry for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, whether you're a fifth generation of handing down a company, you've got all of that years of experience. I guarantee you won't understand the industry like I do, and from that aspect of it. And these are the key points. This is what's wrong with it. This is how we're going to change it. These are hints and tips. This is the Construct and Act and how you should use it to your advantage, what it's there for, why it's there to protect you, and contracts, why you need them and how to negotiate them, that kind of thing. So they're the key things. And then we'll go into things about a bit more specific, like valuations, variations. We'll also talk about different types of contract, JCT, NDC, IET, writing your own contract, homeowners contracts, that kind of thing, on a basic scale, and just like an overview. And then we're going to talk about detailed stuff on applications for payment, so how to apply for them, how to review them, that kind of thing, variations, how to avoid disputes, final accounts. We'll go into those kind of things a bit more specifically, but they will still be general, because obviously every contract is different, but I'll go through that in the contracts episode. Just a general overview and hints and tips, because being a QS for so many years and being the person that signs that money off, I know why, what for, why people don't get paid, when they don't get paid, how to avoid it, but also giving tips to do things properly all the way through, so at the end of it, at the final account, you don't get screwed. And that's kind of the basis of it. So I want to base a podcast around the sort of processes of how you're going to be doing a project. So understanding the industry to start with, and then how to move forward, due diligence, looking at contractors, and then it leads to final account. So if you're following them, although you can listen in any order, the idea is to educate you as you go. So when it comes to it, before you ever get to the final account, which is what I will train you to do, you're in a comfortable position when, as a contractor, for example, or subcontractor, when you get to final account stage, the power flips, because then you're not in control, they are, because you've delivered the project and now it's about getting the final payment. So there is a shift, and it's making sure that at the pivot time of that shift that you are protected, to make sure that's not the point you get screwed over either way from either side. So by the time we issue the episode on final accounts, you should have been able to find out other bits and pieces, but also at that point, you know which part of it that you might be weak. And that's the point. And then moving forward, we're going to other sort of specific things, more details in other professionals and that kind of thing.
People can listen back to these episodes as well. This is the thing about podcasts. They don't have to listen once and make notes as they're going. You can listen to it over and over and over again, which is extremely valuable and very generous of you to do this, not only your time, but to do it free of charge as well.
Thank you. That's just me, to be honest. I've always been extraordinary. There have been points in some of my life where I've realised that clients especially, or people in general, haven't deserved my extra. So they just get my ordinary. Now it's all about my extra, and I understand that. But obviously there is a big caveat. The advice that I'm going to give is so generic, and it is generic. My genuine purpose is to get out there and empower, but obviously it's making people aware I'm here. And because I'm doing something different, it's very difficult to raise awareness. So my expertise, because I'm not particularly great at marketing, because I'm a great QS and I'm a construction expert, I'm not great at marketing either, but I just want to get my message out there. But also, yeah, I do want to build my business, and I do want to get more and more clients, and I want to change the world. But there's only so many ways you can do that. But I found your podcast is the best way to be as diverse as I can, and also make it available for all, so people will benefit. So small subcontractors, one-man bands that are not going to be able to afford for me to come in and fix their business or things like that, doesn't mean that they don't deserve to have this same free advice and support. So yeah, people have to make sure, not take it with a pinch of salt as such, but just make sure that they're checking their contract and their specifics, because it will be general, and I obviously be liable, especially with contracts. We talked about this in more detail, but they are so diverse now and so many amendments that you have to check your contract. You'll have a liability, but you have a liability and a responsibility to do your own due diligence. But I'd like to put you in the right path, or at least shed a light of where you need to be looking and what you need to be doing. So it will change the industry 100%, but it'll also open doors for me. So as much as, yes, I am generous and it's great for me to do this, there will be a benefit, because I will get clients from it. People will come to me. People will want to spend an hour of my time so they understand that I'm an expert, just to help them more specifically in whatever they need. And people will be employing me to come and fix their businesses and turn their projects around, or their companies around, or whatever. Like, there will be something I will get out of it. It's not totally selfless, but the general ethos is to empower as many people as I can, because ultimately, I suppose a podcast is in my head for those people that won't be able to afford me. But ultimately, I know if I can empower them, that affects their children. That affects the holidays they go on. That if they can earn a bit more money and not get screwed over just by listening to my podcast, I know there's going to be kids going up to Disneyland that wouldn't have gone to Disneyland if their dad or mum hadn't listened to my podcast. That's why I do it. And I don't expect anyone to tell me that. And I'm not expecting to have the praise for that. I just know there's a potential that I could empower people to make their lives better just by giving them some advice. And that's my general motivation. But karma and the universe works in wonderful ways.
It's a beautiful way of looking at it. And I'm a huge believer in putting out good things into the universe and it comes back to you tenfold. So I'm already confident that this podcast is going to achieve that. That's all for this episode of Taking the Con Out of Construction. We've got to know you, Michelle, and impressive story, and of course the vision behind this podcast. Next time, we'll be digging into what's really going wrong in the construction industry. Very frank conversations, which I'm very much looking forward to, and I'm going to learn even more. I've learned a lot today already. Michelle, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us, and it's a great way to start the series.
You're welcome.
If you found value in today's episode, hit subscribe so you never miss a new release, and share it with someone in the industry who needs to hear it. To learn more, access resources, or find out how Michelle Carr and Construction Alchemy can help you protect your projects, solve problems, and boost your profits, visit constructionalchemy.co.uk. Together, we can change the industry, one project, one company, and one episode at a time. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are based on the personal experiences of Michelle Carr and her guests. They are for general information only and should not be relied upon as professional or legal advice. Always seek your own independent advice before making decisions. Neither Michelle Carr nor Construction Alchemy accepts liability for any loss, damage, or consequences arising from actions taken based on this podcast. Thank you for listening.